Welcome to Social Work Matters. The purpose that we're going to talk about today ties into our tagline, which is where passion meets purpose. Today with us, we have Dr. Sara Strayer. Dr. Strayer is the Director of Field Education and Practicum in the Alliant MSW program. And additionally, we have Doran, who is one of our second-year MSW students that is joining us as well. So thank you, Dr. Strayer and Doran, for being part of this conversation today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, topic of discussion today is one that we hear a lot. Dr. Strayer and I hear a lot, and Doran, you're living firsthand a social work practicum, right? And all things surrounding that and kind of what that looks like. So, Dr. Strayer, would you mind starting just kind of sharing a little bit about your experience? Let's start with maybe your degrees, right? And when you started your social work practicum.
Sure, absolutely. So my background is in social work, of course. So I do have a bachelor's of social work and a master's of social work, and I completed practicums for both of those degrees. So when I was an undergrad student, I completed my practicum at a county child welfare agency, Child Protective Services, as a casework intern. So I was helping caseworkers conduct child abuse investigations, working with caseworkers, foster care placements, reuniting families through the court systems, all of that for my undergrad. And then for my master's degree, I did an internship similar to that in child welfare, but I served as a forensic interviewer of child abuse, neglect victims and witnesses. So in that role, I also worked with children and their families to make sure that they were safe and to work with the multidisciplinary team of the legal system, medical caregivers, child welfare agency, law enforcement, all of those professionals to support children through their experiences. I'm happy to say that I lived to tell the tale and I successfully completed both of those practicums and degrees, but it did take a lot of work, a lot of time, dedication, and part of my job at Alliant is to oversee the practicums, the field education program for the MSW program. So I work with students to help them plan for their practicums, prepare for their practicums. I establish partnerships with practicum sites and just manage and oversee and coordinate the field education program. And I love doing that and just supporting students through that process since I lived through that myself and know what that experience is like.
Yeah, so talk about a full circle moment, right?
Absolutely.
Would you mind sharing just a little bit of kind of the history, why that specific practicum or those specific populations were intriguing to you, both at the bachelor's and master's level?
So I actually didn't know what I wanted to do as a social worker. I knew I wanted to go into the profession. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't really know what population or setting I wanted to work in, which is, I personally think the wonderful part about the practicum is that you have an opportunity to try things out, to learn, and to really experience social work firsthand with real people in real practice situations. My professor, my faculty in my social work programs I went through worked with me to identify some options. And then I applied and interviewed with different organizations, and I decided what would be the best fit for me after going through that process. So thankfully, I went through those practicums and I ended up working at both of those places after I graduated. So it was really a successful and positive experience.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Doran, talk to me about your practicum. Again, second year MSW student, congratulations. You're so close to being finished. So you've had now 2 practicums under your belt.
Yes. So my first practicum was at the State Department of Rehabilitation. I was fortunate enough to find a paid role or a paid practicum.
Beautiful.
That experience, it was really eye-opening and really empowering experience. As a graduate student assistant, I had the chance to support individuals in gaining meaningful employment and assessing essential services that promoted independence and efficacy out in the community. I was also involved in assisting them with accommodations, sitting in on them on interviews, reviewing documentations, and learning firsthand how kind of the social work, how the social work intersects with like state policy and vocational rehab. So this experience really deepened my understanding of advocacy, system level support, and kind of the importance of accessibility and equality in public services.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. So I'll rinse and repeat the question that I used for Dr. Strayer. What led you to wanting to work with that population?
Dr. Strayer knows you and I, we've been back and forth in trying to find a practicum. Like we had one set and then we didn't have one set due to whatever the guidelines the practicum site had. And so I kind of wanted to step outside of my comfort zone instead of sticking with one population. And so, I had the conversation with Dr. Strayer. I was like, maybe we should just broaden our horizons and kind of do what makes us uncomfortable. Because if, as a future clinician, if we're staying with things that we're comfortable with, then we're really never growing. And so kind of that whole aspect led me to working with that population.
Thanks for sharing. So on two occasions, we have kind of this general idea of what we want to do when we grow up, but then we have expertise and someone challenging you guys to think outside of the box. Specific to Alliant, Dr. Strayer, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about Practicum. So pretend I'm a student that is, doing a web search. Click on, Practicum information. Tell us a little bit about that. Again, I'm nervous. I don't know if I can do this. When are you first touching base with students surrounding Practicum?
So Practicum is an exciting time where students, as I shared earlier, get into their communities and begin to apply all that they've been learning in the classroom in real situations to provide social work services. So I work with students when they begin the MSW program that very first trimester to help them plan and prepare for that first experience in the practicum. And students have a practicum scheduled based on when they begin the MSW program. So they have a first year practicum that takes place during the second trimester in the MSW program. And then they'll also have a second year practicum, which takes place during the final 2 trimesters that they're in the MSW program right before they graduate. So I work with them before both of those practicums to really think about what their needs are, the locations, the populations, the settings, the scheduling, all of those details and logistics to help them plan for that experience. So students are responsible for securing a practicum site, and I support them through that process. So instead of being placed at a site by myself, but instead of me telling them where they're going to be, they do have the autonomy and the agency in identifying what their preferences are, what their goals are. And they have the opportunity to apply to and interview with qualified organizations based on those factors that are important to them. So during that planning process, I'll say that the students do have access to a list of organizations that I provide from the MSW program that they can utilize to help them identify a site, or they can work with me to help search for a site or request approval of an agency that they may have found on their own.
Doran, would you be so kind to speak a little bit about memories when you interviewed, and then the first time that you met with Dr. Strayer?
One thing that doesn't get talked about enough in graduate school is how the practicum can kind of affect your personal life. For me, balancing like practicum hours, coursework, and my job at a department of rehab has definitely been a whirlwind and a challenge. Dr. Strayer knows we've had multiple meetings and I was really stressed and I was panicking. I didn't know what to do. And then, you have the whole layer of the financial stress as well, especially when it comes to expenses like commuting, meals, and then taking time off from paid work. What really made the big difference was the support that I received from Alliant. The faculty really understood that many of us are working professionals and or have families or other obligations out in the real world. And so they were flexible, responsive, and always encouraged open communication. And so I never felt like I was kind of navigating it alone. And so at Alliant, the emphasis on mental health and wellness also helped me normalize these struggles because this program supports you in becoming a human and going through a rigorous journey. And so, I also found sense of community with my cohort during this time. I definitely leaned on the cohort a lot, because even though we were spread out literally throughout the state, we still lean on each other for that emotional support. And so the experience was a good one. It stretched me, but it definitely grounded me into the program.
Tell me a couple tips and tricks that you would give students thinking about like that first touch point. Dr. Strayer has sent you the email and said, what are you going to do? Let's meet. What advice would you give to future students?
When I first started the program, I kind of waited to pick a practicum. We were freaking out. Literally, we're all freaking out. We're like, dude, like you only have a certain amount of time. And I was a rookie. And so I didn't understand how important the practicum was. I just thought I'm going to apply, get it, and then we're going to call it a day. I would start early and be proactive. Reaching out to potential sites, updating your resume is a good one early on, and preparing for interviews well in advance. And then also communicate clearly and often when it comes to picking a side and scheduling and whatnot. Because like I said, a lot of us are working. So it's a really, really big life change for a short amount of time, from adjusting your working life to potentially this unpaid practicum that you have to do for months on end.
So start early, communicate is what I heard.
Yeah, very, very important. Two things I didn't do that kind of delayed a lot during my experience. So yeah.
You're not alone. We talk about this in interviews and orientation. Every faculty that you guys have touch points with have been down this same journey. Most of us work full-time, go to school full-time, and then of course doing practicum. Thanks for sharing that. Dr. Strayer, Doran touched about completing hours and how that's strenuous, or can be. Talk to me a little bit about what the hour expectation is within the Alliant MSW program.
Students have a first-year practicum and a second-year practicum. So the first-year practicum students complete a total of 300 hours during one 15-week trimester. So that averages to students being in a practicum for about 20 hours a week. It is essentially like scheduling a part-time job, something to consider when you are planning for your practicum. The second year practicum is similar. It's over the course of 2 trimesters, so it's longer than the first practicum, but it's still 300 hours per trimester. So by the end, students would have completed 600 hours for that second year practicum, and that averages about 20 hours a week for those 30 weeks of the second year practicum. So by the end, once students graduate, they will have completed a total of 900 practicum hours in their MSW degree.
So Dr. Strayer, 900 hours seems like a totally random number. Tell me about that number being a nice saturation, both at the foundational and the advanced level.
We are accredited by the Council on Social Work Education, which is the accreditor of all social work education programs in the United States. And they specify that students should complete at least 900 practicum hours. It's believed that at that point, students would have developed what they call competence as a social worker, that they've developed the knowledge and values and skills and processes that they need to then go out and be professional social workers after graduation. So we adhere to that in our program, and we feel that it's really a valuable experience to get that time, not only in the organizations, but with the clients, practicing these assessments and interventions and working in the community.
Where do students complete practicums? Tell us a little bit about kind of the typical and atypical practicum site.
Practicums can be completed at a lot of different types of organizations. We look that they meet certain qualifications or certain criteria that organizations have to meet, and that's what I work with students on to make sure that the site that they want to complete their practicum meets those criteria. Really, we're looking that the organization provides social work services, so students have an opportunity to practice and that they will have contact with clients during their practicum to practice their skills. For example, just a few ideas could be schools, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, hospitals, residential facilities, substance abuse treatment centers, transitional housing programs, prisons, child welfare agencies, behavioral health services, community health clinics. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's quite a variety where social workers work. In addition to an organization providing social work services, they also have a qualified supervisor available to oversee the student's practicum. And that's one of the really important pieces to consider in this planning process. A social work supervisor, we call them the MSW supervisor for the practicum. They need to have a Council on Social Work Education accredited Master's of Social Work degree with 2 years of post MSW degree practice experience. And they are responsible for providing 1 hour a week of supervision to the student just to reinforce that social work perspective and provide the student opportunity to kind of process their experiences and reflect and tie it all back to social work.
Doran, I'm going to bring you back kind of into the conversation. Would you mind sharing some specific things that you're able to do in your practicum site?
So I guess I can refer to my first year practicum I did at DOR. I work out of Napa, out of the Napa office. And so we did a lot of outreach with local agencies. And so what that looks like could be Napa State Hospital one day, and then the county the next, and then another state agency the following week. Kind of like Department of Social Services is a really big one that we work closely with. So we did outreach, we did accommodation campaigns for the clients that are in Napa State Hospital, and also did a lot of counseling with my MSW supervisor that I was able to sit in on, which is, it wasn't required for the first year practicum, but I was fortunate enough to kind of have that experience on how to apply therapeutic interventions to people that are in crisis. At DOR, we dealt with a lot of individuals that were in a crisis, or they came down from our local Napa State Hospital. So accommodations, we did therapeutic interventions, we did outreach, a lot of communication with stakeholders in that form of, hey, we're DOR and we provide all these different kind of services. We're supporting an individual now who has bipolar disorder and another mental diagnosis, and we're paying for his entire doctorate. So that's like some of the things that we're able to do at DOR. We're paying for countless master programs and things of that nature. Definitely hits near and dear to heart that we're able to kind of do that for people that have physical and mental disabilities.
Dr. Strayer, what are some practicum experiences that are kind of imprinted in your brain?
Well, we have students doing all sorts of things. This trimester, we have students in schools. We have students in mental health hospitals. We have students providing individual therapy, group counseling, students in a human trafficking organization and shelter, youth center, a whole variety of different opportunities. And they're doing amazing work in their communities, things like case management. They're connecting with community resources to provide their clients information, referral services, crisis intervention. They are facilitating trainings. They are engaging in advocacy, like Doran shared. They're conducting research. They are completing assessments, different interventions with their clients, goal and treatment plannings. They're doing program evaluations, policy reviews. The list goes on. And it's really exciting to see them have all of these different opportunities and really learning not only about themselves through the process, but also about the folks that they're serving and developing their identity as a professional social worker.
Wow, that does sound like a ton of opportunities and quite the variety.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. We have students all throughout different regions and communities doing a variety of different things, which is really, I think, speaks to the dynamic of the social work profession, that we have these knowledge and skills that can be applied to different settings and populations, which is very exciting.
I think now is a good time to kind of plug your role in student success within the Alliant program. I think a lot of times as students are coming to us like pre-program and doing interviews, they're really nervous about the lack of support. But I think, just the overabundance of agencies that you just spoke about. And again, the variety speaks to the fact that you are doing just an amazing job with supporting our students.
It's an honor to work with students, and I really see it as a partnership that we collaborate together and work together to help them have a successful experience.
Doran spoke earlier about the fact that he had 2 opportunities to be able to have paid practicum, which thank you, for talking about that, and also pointing out that's definitely something that's out of the extraordinary. So kudos to you, and kudos again to Dr. Strayer and the team for making that happen. But Dr. Strayer, this question probably is for you. Talk to me about students being able to complete paid practicums, practicums that place them in employment. What does that look like?
So it is an option for students to have paid practicums, or also what we call an employment-based practicum. I always like to share the disclaimer that those are not guaranteed. Students shouldn't come in expecting that, but we do work with them and we do advocate for that as best we can. As far as employment-based practicums, if students work in an organization that meets the practicum criteria, they could have the opportunity to complete their practicum there. So there are a couple criteria or policies around what that looks like. And the really great thing is that if this organization qualifies and the students wants to do an employment-based practicum, their practicum tasks and their employment tasks can be the same and can be counted towards their practicum hours, so long as they have links to the required social work competencies, the things that they are working on during their practicum. So that's something that we look at and talk with the organization about. We also want to make sure that the student is positioned as a learner. We want them to be engaged as a student in their practicum and not just an employee if they're doing an employment-based practicum. So we talk about what learning experiences or opportunities will they have during an employment-based practicum to support that. Also, we talked about the importance of supervision during the practicum. There also still needs to be that MSW supervisor available in an employment-based practicum. So if the student's employment supervisor meets that criteria, they can also serve as the practicum supervisor. However, we do want to make sure that that learning experience is still protected, and the supervision time for employment needs to be separate from supervision time for the practicum. So just a couple differences between maybe a traditional non-employment-based practicum with the employment-based practicum that we consider during that planning process.
Let's say that I'm a prospective student and I have a practicum site that I like. They don't even have a relationship with Alliant. Talk me through what that process looks like. Is it possible?
Definitely could be possible. So if students identify a site on their own, then I ask that they communicate with me, share with me the name of the organization, who the contact person is, and then I follow up with them directly with that organization and really talk through all of the different criteria and logistics of the practicum to make sure that it meets the educational requirements that we have in place, and then work to get the students set up. Most of the time, the organizations do qualify, do want to support the student in their learning. So it's typically a successful experience, not all the time, but usually we can help support students through that. Also, you mentioned about supervision. Maybe they don't have somebody on site or available to provide supervision. So the MSW supervisor doesn't have to be employed in the organization. It can be anybody. It could be somebody maybe in a partner agency or organization. It could be somebody in a different department or program. It could be somebody in the community that the practicum site or the student knows. So there's different opportunities to make it work and to make sure that the practicum is set up appropriately for the student. So again, that's my role, to help students walk through that and to evaluate all of that for the practicum planning.
With many of our, students, not only at Alliant, but just interested in obtaining a master's degree in social work, many of them are working, full-time. And of course, as we've already established, going to school full-time. Are there opportunities for practicum hours like evenings and weekends? Do students have to be in a brick and mortar practicum? Are there opportunities for authentic learning assignments outside of kind of the typical workday?
Yeah, those are good questions. And I will say that I worked full-time during my practicum, so I totally understand and appreciate how it's a lot to navigate and consider while you are in the MSW program. Yes, students can complete practicum hours on evening and weekends. However, I will share a disclaimer that it's not guaranteed, and it can be difficult to find practicum sites that offer evening and weekend practicum opportunities because many social work organizations don't offer services during non-business hours, or if they do, they're not willing to host students during those non-business hours due to a lack of supervision or maybe related safety issues, different factors involved there. I work with students to identify those needs when they're planning for their practicum. It is possible for students to maybe do some non-traditional type practicum hours. Students are required to have contact with clients who are folks served by their organizations, whether that's individuals or families or groups or in the community itself. However, this contact with clients can be fully physically in person, it could be virtually, or it could be a combination. Those kind of remote practicum hours are really determined by the practicum site, by their conditions, their needs. It has to be something that's pre-approved by the practicum site, and making sure that the student has, if they are doing remote hours, that they have approved devices for secure communication, all of those details from the organization. I also suggest that first year students should not complete fully remote practicums. And again, those are not typically offered, but we want students to be fully immersed in a practicum setting to support their learning and be able to engage in all of those dynamics. So again, something we consider and explore when students are planning for their practicum. There's also opportunities, and Doran knows this, that students complete documentation. They might need to do online trainings. They might need to do different research or reviewing articles, writing grants, all of those things. They can talk with their supervisor in the practicum about, maybe can I complete that on my own time or when I'm at home, and what all of those different factors look like.
Doran, since she kind of teed you up nicely, would you be so kind to speak about some of the untypical like things that you were kind of doing on your own time?
I did a lot of things I was kind of doing on my own time. One was definitely meeting with the local agencies outside of our practicum scope. That was due to me and my supervisor was like, hey, dude, like I really love this job and I want to do more than just sit here with you all day and be at a computer and type emails and that kind of a thing. And so, yeah, a lot of the extracurricular and outreach was kind of done outside of the practicum hour base. And I kind of did that on my own. And every weekend I am meeting with, like I said, new different stakeholders, new department agencies. Napa State Hospital is a really, really huge agency that I'm really proud of connecting with and getting a partnership with, because before I came aboard, there was no partnership with Napa State Hospital. But, due to the work that I was doing out in the community, I was able to represent DOR and what we did, and they really loved that. And so we were able to partner with them and supporting their clients.
So who does choose your learning activities? And I'll pose that to both Dr. Strayer and Doran.
Go ahead, Dr. Strayer.
I was going to share that the practicum tasks are specified by the practicum organization. As I shared, there's a variety of different practicum sites, so they all do different work and provide different services. So they're going to specify and talk with me and the student about what the student will be doing in the practicum. And then, as Doran shared, the students can talk about their own unique learning goals during the practicum and specify that and see if those opportunities are available.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off Dr. Strayer, I think it's definitely a full circle of people that are supporting you in your learning at the practicum, including the MSW supervisor and Dr. Strayer, and also the team manager that's at the practicum. It's definitely a collab with what does Alliant want to see, and also what does the student need in order to be, the best future clinician that they can be.
So it sounds like it's really a collaborative approach between meeting competencies related to CSWE requirements, program requirements, student and agency needs as well.
Absolutely. And I'll say too that we have fantastic professional social workers that supervise our students, and they are a wealth of knowledge and resources, and they do a really great job of helping support and direct the students' learning experiences in the practicum.
Dr. Strayer and Doran, I am a first-generation college student, so I remember getting my bachelor's degree, thinking that was a feat, and then contemplating going on to get my master's degree and just being so nervous about, do I have the skills? Can I do this? No one that, that I know has ever done this before. Doran, are you a first generation college student?
Yes.
If we've got prospective students out there thinking, oh my goodness, can I do it? Give us some words of wisdom.
Being a first-gen college student, it's been both one of the biggest challenges and also the proudest moments of my entire journey. I'm the first in my family to kind of navigate the world of higher education, which meant there wasn't really a roadmap laid out for me. So I was just kind of, well, I'm here, I'm doing it, and I think I'm doing the right thing. And so I had to learn a lot on my own, how to apply to college, manage coursework, balance work, and then also understand what it really means to be a student. At times it was overwhelming and isolating, especially when I didn't always see people who looked like me or had similar experiences. But that also became my motivation, to kind of break those barriers and create new possibilities, not just for myself, but for my family and my community. Both my parents, they have high school diplomas. That's about it. And so kind of like you, Dr. Hampton, I got my associate's degree from Sacramento City College in psychology, and I did my undergrad at Sacramento State. And I was like, well, what's next? I got this piece of paper. And so that's why I decided I have to keep going, and then that also led me to, I'm applying for my doctorate program in about 2 months at one of the local universities that's near me. And so, that kind of push, being first gen, it kind of taught me a lot of resilience and how to self-advocate, and the power literally for asking for help. And so, that's one of the reasons why I kept going, because I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be the first doctor in my entire family. You kidding me? Not, I'm gonna brag my entire life. Yes, I'm gonna do it.
Doran, thank you so much for sharing that story. To kind of think bachelor's degree, and here you are yet to be finished with your master's degree, and you're already applying to doc programs. So super proud of you from that perspective. Talk to us a little bit about kind of the transition from being nervous first generation college student to being in the Alliant MSW program, and now kind of going on to your doc program. How much support did you have from both your faculty and also your supervisors in Practicum? And then I'd like to probably say that your cohort has supported your success as well.
Making the jump from undergraduate studies to the Master of Social Work program was definitely a big transition. Like the pace, the depth of material, and like kind of the expectations that stepped up significantly. So coming from Sacramento State, where I've earned my bachelor's in child and adolescent development, I felt prepared academically. But, the MSW program's community was a really big help in settling into the program and getting adjusted to grad school, because I graduated May 12th of 2024, and I was in the program May 30th, 2024. And so I was like, whoa, I'm going too fast. And so, but my classmates, my supervisors, and especially the student organizations, they helped create a sense of belonging. And also connecting with peers who understood the demands of the program really helped me stay motivated and accountable. Plus the resources like counseling services, academic advising, and even Dr. Strayer. Dr. Strayer, we've had some really intense emotional meetings because I didn't understand if I was going to make it in the program or not, or what I was going to do. And so, like, looking back, the network of support was really the difference between feeling overwhelmed and feeling empowered. It definitely helped me build confidence as I navigated a more challenging academic environment and prepared me for my future career.
Doran and Dr. Strayer, this question is for whoever wants to to speak first. The sequence of classes within the MSW program is pretty strategic, right? When we have students in Practicum 1, we want them in a practice class. And then, of course, we want them in the Practicum seminar class, right? Where they're able to talk about all of the things that they're seeing, that they're feeling, that they're learning from reading it in a textbook and actually doing it in person. Either from the Practicum director or Doran from a student perspective, are there things that kind of stand out that you were like, this was really cool? I remember reading this in the textbook and now I'm seeing it like in real life.
During, my time here at the MSW program, one of the most impactful class actually that, I took was the substance abuse and intervention class. That's a class where I learned how to use the DSM-5 to understand and categorize mental health conditions. And so this class deepened my knowledge of how to diagnose, how to give assessments, how to apply biopsychosocial assessments. And so what really made this learning really come alive for me is when I started my practicum at the Department of Rehab here in California. There I observed and participated in client assessments, and I was able to apply the diagnostic frameworks from the DSM-5 that I learned about in that class to better understand the challenges clients were facing, especially in terms of mental health and how those issues impacted their employment and daily function. So it really wasn't about, making official diagnosis, but it was rather taking the knowledge that I learned from that class and learning how to apply that in the real world in order to, to support someone's functioning out in the community. So the integration of classroom theory with practicum experience made my learning very much practical and meaningful. And, it reinforced the importance of solid clinical knowledge in supporting our clients.
Dr. Strayer, what would you add?
I am biased, but I do think the MSW program curriculum does a nice job of preparing students to enter the practicum. They have a first semester where they are becoming oriented with the profession. What does it mean to be a social worker? What do social workers do? Talking about how it relates to policy and human development and all those different factors. And then they get to go into the practicum and see how that looks and plays out in real life. They're concurrently supported with a seminar course while they're in the practicum that's specifically focused on their practicum experiences and helping them unpack all of that and reflect on their learning that they are doing during the practicum. They also have a concurrent practice course with the practicum to really reinforce and build upon those skills that they need to work with people in the practicum. So that's the same for the first practicum and the second year practicum, that they have this coursework that's really supporting them and helping them in real time apply the things that they're learning in practice.
Dr. Strayer, Doran, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day today to talk to me about practicum, your experience, the practicum process at Alliant. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to both of you and learning more about your journeys. Final words, words of encouragement, last thoughts?
Just share that every social worker has gone through a practicum and that you can do it too, and that you have this support available as you're going through it.
I just want to say to anyone walking this path, especially if you are first to do it in your family, just know this, that you're capable, you are needed, and you're not alone.
So thank you for being present and for learning with us today. Social Work Matters, where passion meets purpose.